All right, what's up, everybody? It's your boy Akeen, and welcome to today's second blog. Here to continue all my top tight ends coming into the 2013 fantasy football year. Now, I need to give you my top 10 picks with this particular blog. Starting at number 10, I'm going to go with Antonio Gates out of the San Diego Chargers. Now, old age has been kicking in for him, but I still think he could be an effective tight end. He's still getting a lot of targets from Phillip Rivers, and that's why I have him at number 10. Number 9, I'm going to go with Carolina's Greg Olsen. He had 843 yards receiving and 5 touchdowns last season, placing 6th according to ESPN in fantasy points by a tight end. At number 8, I'm going to go with Owen Daniels out of the Houston Texans. This guy has never really disappointed me. Over 700 yards last season receiving, and he is still a good, valuable pick at the tight end position, especially coming after a lot of years coming out of the University of Wisconsin. I have to give a lot of props to Owen Daniels. I think he's a little bit underrated as a tight end. I think he's a great tight end overall. At number 7, I'm going to go with Kyle Rudolph out of the Minnesota Vikings. Now, he did so well last season. He actually ranked 9th overall, and that was because of touchdowns. He had 9 touchdown receptions last season. Hopefully he could duplicate that again this year, but get more receiving yards. That's why I have him at number 7. I was a little bit concerned to put him in my top 10, because 9 touchdowns was a lot last season. He had a lot of red zone reads, but I still think he's going to get the yardage. Probably not going to get the same amount of touchdowns as he did last season, but we will see. He might be able to do this again. At number 6, I'm going to go with Baltimore's Dennis Pitta, and I think he's a great tight end. And yes, Aldon Smith, he definitely deserves to crack the top 100 players for 2013. He was actually number 100 exactly. He placed 5th overall in points last season for a tight end. At number 5, I'm going to go with Aldon Smith's teammate, Vernon Davis from the San Francisco 49ers. I think he's going to have a great season coming up to this year. Yes, he had a little bit of a down year. He wasn't in the top 15, but I still think he's a good tight end, especially without Michael Crabtree, who would not be available this season. So Vernon Davis is going to get a lot more looks from Colin Kaepernick. At number 4, I'm going to go with Jason Witten out of the Dallas Cowboys. Maxed over 1,000 yards last season, but only had 3 touchdowns. We need a little bit more touchdowns from Jason, but I think he's a great player. Over 100 catches last year, and he will be a future Hall of Famer. And speaking of future Hall of Famers, my number 3 guy is Tony Gonzalez out of the Atlanta Falcons. I think he will be good this upcoming year. I like this guy a lot. He struggled a little bit coming towards the stretch at the end of the season in the second half, but I still think he's going to post up good numbers for you guys. At number 2, despite missing 6 games, Rob Gronkowski still ranked 2nd overall in points. Now, if he's healthy, he should be that number 1 tight end for you guys, but I think health is going to be a big factor for him and a big concern for everybody in fantasy play. And at number 1, this was the obvious pick for me, Jimmy Graham from the New Orleans Saints. Because he has that basketball background, just like Antonio Gates, he would definitely be able to get to the football. He has great size, well over 6'2", and I think he would definitely be able to reach to the football because of that basketball background. He's using that football just like a basketball and catching rebounds, just like Antonio Gates from the San Diego Chargers. I think he's going to have a big year. He just missed a 1,000-yard mark last season, but I think he should get over 1,000 yards this year in receiving passes from Drew Brees. Now, I have a couple of honorable mentions for you guys. Both of these 2 players are going to start this season off on the PUP list, the PUP list, starting off with Heath Miller out of the Pittsburgh Steelers. He had a great year last season, but he tore his MCL, PCL, and ACL, and he would have been in my top 10. And I think he could be a top 5 wide receiver, especially when Mike Wallace no longer with the team. But I forgot to mention to you guys, he has suffered those major injuries, and I think Antonio Brown will be a good sleeper for wide receivers in fantasy play. If Heath Miller was healthy and be able to be available for week 1, he would definitely have cracked my top 10. And Scott Chandler out of the Buffalo Bills, he should also start a season off with the PUP list. I think he had a decent year overall, particularly in the first half. A little bit inconsistency, but he had some good games last season. Now, my sleeper this year, I'm going to go with Arizona's Rob Hauser. I think because of Carson Palmer coming into the team, Hauser's going to get a lot more looks, more yardage, and more touchdowns, and I think he will sleep his way inside at least the top 20 this upcoming season for tight ends. He would be a definite good 2nd tight end. You just have to give him a chance, give him a couple weeks to take a look at it. Now, I'm going to give you guys a couple of notes of what to do do at the tight end position for your drafts this year, I think you should definitely go with a tight end in the later rounds and actually in the double-digit rounds. Seriously, you should get your skilled players first, except for if you want to risk Rob Gronkowski and definitely Jimmy Graham. Those two are good exceptions, especially if you want to talk about Jimmy Graham. I once had a little quick note from NYC Delaney. I have to give you a shout out for that. Thank you for giving me the note last night. We talked about it a little bit, and he thought about only 5 receivers who should be picked over Jimmy Graham, and I definitely agree with him at that. And those 5 receivers: Julio Jones, Dez Bryant, AJ Green, Megatron, and I think maybe one more wide receiver. I can't think of him off the top of my head. Oh, Brandon Marshall is actually the 5th wide receiver that I mentioned. But I think that you can definitely take a risk of picking Jimmy Graham in the earlier rounds. But I think overall, because the tight ends are pretty much even, you should definitely pick them at the double-digit rounds and get your skill players and everything else set before you go to the tight end position. I strongly suggest that, because you really need to get a good running backs and good receivers, but you can still get a decent tight ends in the later rounds. Now, the next time I'm going to catch you guys is tomorrow, where I will give you my top 10 defense/special teams. I'm not going to give you a top 20. I'm only going to give you a top 10, and same for the kickers. But I'm going to catch you guys tomorrow to talk about defense/special teams. Thank you for watching today's vlogs. I'm your man, Akeem McCall. Be easy.